Windows Server 2019 System Administration. Welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Pradhan, your trainer for this entire series. In today's topic, we are going to talk about the VPN. Normally, this VPN was actually launched by this Microsoft in their network environment in 1996, when let's say the group of the staff only started, setting a new protocol or implementing actually that's a tunneling protocol for the peer-to-peer in 1996. That is commonly nowadays known as a VPN this VPN is normally used to set a secure connection in your corporate area so that any of your client, any of your staff can normally access their corporate resources from any remote location actually. So let's see how actually this VPN works. I would like to make a short video so that it will be easy for you to understand also. Okay, now if you have a look over here in this image that I have shown over here, this is actually simple virtual private network over here. It is used to set a communication in a secure tunnel through which a user can set or stay connected in their corporate areas or from the any remote area to their main server or any branch office, so that they will be able to resource any kind of their resources staying in any corner of the world, okay, without taking the remote control. So it's the easiest one, okay. And so far I do believe it's a bit secure also, because I have not heard anyone so far any incident have taken place in order to having any kind of misleading information about the cracking this type of tunneling over here. So here now, normally if you see at the right hand side there is one VPN client and the left hand side there is a VPN server. So let's understand in easiest way how this VPN works actually. So in VPN server actually, if I have to take you over here, let's take it one point over here. Let's say you're in your corporate area. Let's say this is your head office, okay, this is your head office and there is a server, okay, this is a fully domain is there. So in this domain environment, of course, you are going to host any kind of file server, any resources are being shared. But in our example, we are going to talk about the file server. Let's say there is a one domain. Okay, in our case, I have used as a viatech.com domain, which I'm going to show you practically just after having this brief discussion or the necessity of implementing this VPN in your network environment. So let's say there is a one server, okay, this is your domain. Now this domain obviously you are going to have your own range of IP, okay. So the domain is being hosted over here, but when your client they travel in a long distance, let's say the vast geographical distance, and they want to have access over their resources from the any distance from the remote location. Now you cannot give access to each and every client using your remote access. There might be security issues, or that client might be having their PCs might be infected with the virus, malware. There can be so many issues. So for that, now we have another one option, okay, that we are going to talk about. That's a virtual private network over here. It is used actually for the secure tunnel the data from the local computer to the remote server. That means this, let's take it as your local computer to the remote server, actually we can have access over our data. So it is bit secure. It asks for the authentication and authorization has to be done. VPN server is to be set, and if you are going over the cloud, it has to be port forwarded in your router as well, okay. That means any of the client, they are going to access your VPN server, that means remote server resources, using the public IP over here. They are going to use some sort of dialing a number. We are going to use a dial-up over here. So this client, whenever dials, will go secure tunnel actually. That means you can see via this image also, it is not easy to crack over here. So that's why the VPN is getting this popularity nowadays in order to stay connected in your corporate area. You might have seen, we see so many apps, so many ads everywhere, VPN, VPN, VPN. This is just because of one reason, it is bit secure, okay. Now, when we talk about the secure this communication, secure this connection over your this corporate area, definitely we're going to talk about the your protocols that are going to be used for this VPN as well. Guys, I repeat again, I'm going to make it short and sweet, okay. There is no much, this complicated over here. Of course, you are going to have a tunic. I'm going to show you step by step. So these are the protocols actually commonly used. It might be your IPsec, L2TP, okay, SSH, TLS. There are so many options, okay. Now, I have created one scenario over here now. See, I have one server over here. I'm going to show you soon, don't worry. This is my server where domain is there. That means viatech.com is here. The IP address of this viatech.com is 192.168.100.100. That's all. I do have another one NIC. Okay, this I have pointed over here switch, but it has connected to the other port over here. Of course, it means they are both the NICs are obviously connected in a switch in our environment. But right now I'm going to use my this virtual, so that's why it's going to be in the same PC. So over here I do have another one NIC. In that NIC I'm going to use another IP. That means the different range of IP. Over here if you see, of course it's a class C, but 100 network. Over here of course it's a class C but 200 network. Obviously they are in the same network, but their network IDs are different. That means they are not going to be able to communicate with each other. That means if I set another one PC, okay, in a remote location over here, if I assume this one, so this computer is also having the IP in the different range. So what's going to happen now over here, if I set, okay, 192.168, let's make it 168 over here, okay, 168, and the 200.201. So obviously they can communicate with each other easily. But our prime concern is that in spite of having in a different network, okay, this network should be able to access the resources of this network. See, so this brings the concept of your virtual LAN. Now there are certain requirements. Number one, any of the client, whenever we may make a dial-up using any kind of this VPN, the client will not be allowed by default to get access over your VPN resources under any circumstances. No, I'm going to show you why. By default, none of the clients are allowed to have access over the VPN. Number one. Number two, when any of the VPN client actually they dial in your VPN network, don't forget they are coming with the IP of different range. See here, have a look. It is a different range of IP, and this client is trying to get access over the resources of this network of IP, which is completely in the different network. That means if even the port forwarding is done, you will have to make sure that the one or the client, whoever is trying to get access over your network resource in their corporate network from any corner of the world, for them you will have to set the specific range of IP, so that that range of IP should be in this range of IP, so that whenever this client dial up over here and pass through the authentication and authorization, then this router or this server, okay, is going to assign the same range of IP, so that this PC can have resource access from this server. That means as soon as this PC is going to get connected with this server, you'll notice that this PC will have two network addresses. One through which this IP has dial up over here, asks for the authentication authorization to get access over the resources over here, and second one, this server will assign a one this network range of IP, so that it's not only in this PC, you can have access to any other PC whichever is connected in this network using this first network range of IP. Okay, so without wasting a time, I do believe you understood this concept. I would like to take you server, okay, where the entire things are set ready-made. That means IP is set, okay, entire things are set. So I'd like to take you to my remote over here. I've used VMware over here today. So first, if I take you to the server, okay, now this is my domain. If I show you the IP address over here, one is in the range of 100 and second one is in the range of 200. That means first one is your internal network and the second one is your external network. Now, if I take you to this IP address, okay, just a second. Now see, this is the IP where the domain is hosted. That means 192.168.100.100. This is the another network. That means this is, we are going to assume as a public interface. Okay. Now, if I show you the physical setup of this one, of this NIC, I mean to say that if you have a look over here, we are going to have two network interface card. One we are going to assume as an internal network, and second one we are going to assume as an external network. So whenever user dials, user will dial to this external network IP. That means the IP facing towards your public interface. This one is your internal one. Okay, 192.168.100.100. And the second one is the 192.168.200 network ID. Now see here, if I say show you the detail over here, you'll find this is the 100 network. Okay. Now the second one is the 200 network. Okay, 200 network. Now if I take you to another one PC which I have used as a client over here, okay, just a second, this one. If I show you the IP of this PC, this is completely different. 200. That means if I ping it 192.168. Let's say 200.200, definitely it should reply because it's in the same network as per the figure I showed you last time. Whereas if I do this 192.168.100.100, it's not going to reply you guys. Why? It's in a different network. Now this is the thing we're going to set up as a VPN. Okay, so for that I need to go to my domain controller. Okay, now let's start the process of setting up your VPN. Okay, since I'm in a lab environment, I'm not going to forward the port, but if you want, you need to forward the port address as well. Okay, don't forget, that's a 443. Okay, so now let's go to manage and remove roles and features. Let's go to next. We need to install a remote access. So let's see over here, remote access role is here. Now if when I tick over here, you might have noticed it's going to list out which are the roles or the features. It's going to be installed by clicking this option. You see over here, VPN is there, direct access is there, NAT is there. Okay, no problem, it will support, don't worry. Just a second, because I'm using this remotely, so that's why it's showing this. We'll add it again, it should do. Okay, wait for a few seconds. Okay, now see, it's going to install VPN, web application proxy, direct access, obviously the NAT as well. Okay, so it goes next, and we don't need anything to be selected after this. Okay, now here you need to select direct access and VPN. Okay, so add the features, additional feature. If you want the routing, okay, go ahead for the routing also, but for this routing, in order to use the NAT, I'm going to make the separate video just right after this. So just install it. Okay, now in between, as I said, that the user account, whoever is going to get over your VPN server, will be asked for the authentication, and of course the authentication means the domain username and password. Okay, but trust me, none of the domain clients are allowed to access the VPN server. By default, this setting is disabled. It will take over or look after by NPS over here. And of course, we are not going to talk about the network policy server. So that's why we are going to set an option so that that client, whomever you want them to be able to dial up in a VPN server and to get access over your this corporate server, okay, any this resources from the remote area, that user must be allowed or selected an option to go through the VPN. Okay, that means remote access permission has to be set over here. Now since it is already installing the role, so that's why it might be taking a bit longer time, so please bear with me for a few more seconds, then we'll continue this one, no problem. Okay, it's installing, it's taking a time, don't worry. By the time we'll be setting the another option for your enabling the VPN client. Okay, so there's a one user which I have previously I've actually pre-populated over here. There's a one user, it's a VPN1. This user is going to dial up your VPN server. See the scenario I have made the simple. Okay, just the two NIC are there and two servers I have used. That means two computers I have used, one as a server and second one I have used as a client. Now if I go to the property over here, you will notice that by default in a dial-in, user is not allowed to go through the VPN because, as I told you, it's been controlled by NPS. That's a default Microsoft setting. See here, dial-in. See, oh okay, here, see now, control access through NPS. As I told you, it's been controlled by NPS, but I don't want this to be happen, so allow access. Now this client will be allowed to dial in as a VPN client. Okay, now it's done. This is only thing from the server side, so let it install. Okay, let's check it has installed or not. It's installing. So if it takes a bit longer time, I'm going to pause the video, then we'll meet after this installation is done. Hey, welcome back everybody. So let's continue from where we left last time. So if I take you to my main server, this is the server, okay, where we have installed the road for this remote access. That means for the VPN that you have seen in a previous video. So right now, if you notice over here, the role has been installed. So I'd like to show you from here. After you install that remote access, so definitely you're going to find it over here as a routing and remote access. Okay, so let's check it over here. It's over here, routing and remote access. That was simply the role was added. Actually configuration is not done so far. So if I have to take you to my another one PC, if you remember last time we have installed use another set of your IP over here. So if I take you here and show you my IP address, okay, this is my different one, no problem. So let's go to this PC. Okay, so this is my another one. Okay, I'm here. Now, if I show you my IP, which I'm going to use it as a client, okay, this IP address over here is the 200. Now, in the range of 200, that means if I ping it over here, the IP that is facing towards your public interface that we have assumed last time, it's going to reply. But if you remember, the main server where VPN is installed, actually, that's IP address is in a range of here 100. That means it's not been able to ping it right now so far. Take you a bit up over here and try to ping it that server, let's say, it shouldn't answer because it's in a different range. See, it's not able. Whereas if I take you to my domain over here, routing and remote access is done. That means the VPN is already installed over here. Okay, now if I go to the command prompt of this PC over here, okay, just a second. If I take you here, this is so many virtuals are here, so that's why it's been a bit slow, so please bear with that. Now if I show you my IP address over here, I'm having the two range of IP addresses that we have seen last time. One is facing as an internal network and the second one is facing as an external network. So if I show you my IP address, I'm having two IP addresses. See, this is the 100, this is the internal network, and second one is the external network, which we have assumed over here. This is my external network. Now I'm going to configure complete VPN. Okay, so let's go over here. Let me take you to the server manager over here. It's a VPN role that we have already installed. So let's select any of this. So now configure. Let's configure this one. Configure and enable routing and remote access. Of course, the VPN setting is done from here only. So let it come. So we're going to select only the VPN, no NAT, nothing. Okay, just a remote access. Let's use it, the dial-up one only. Okay, so let's go next. I'm going to use VPN. Simple. Select next. And this is asking you which one is your public interface. This one is my public interface where the another network card is actually connected. So this one is the internal one. Okay, so I want the VPN is to be dialed used in order to receive the VPN call for this one. So in your network environment, this is the public IP. Okay, since we're in a lab environment, I've used this range of IP. So let's go to next. Now it's asking you when your VPN client come to have an access in order to access any kind of resources. So they are going to come in your network using the different range of the network IP. Of course, they are coming from your public IP. But when your VPN client, they enter in your internal network, they are supposed to have the internal network range of IP. That means in a range of 100. So it's asking you, would you like to give them an IP address via DHCP, or you would like to specify from your own range? Of course, in my case, there is no DHCP. So I'm going to write over here. That means from the specified range over here. So let's try it, the range of IP that we are going to distribute for the VPN client. Let's say this one dot, let's say 150. So how many addresses you would like to give? Let's say 10 for instance. Okay, so this is okay. And the next one, so it's asking you, do you see over here it's talking about the radius. Of course, for the authentication we are not going to use the radius. Okay, so we are using user routing and remote access authentication connection in order to this authenticate mean to say routing and remote access, not the radius. Okay, if you have a radius server, in order to take the responsibility of this authentication, okay, in that case you are going to click this one. So right now we're in a small lab environment, I'm going to use the same one, that means the above one. So let's go to next, and trust me guys, that's it, that's done. Now it's going to configure this. Now our next work is to create a dial-up from your client. That means that will be your remote client. Okay, so let's go to my over here remote client, and I'm gonna create the dialog. Okay, So let's create it one dial-up over here, and that client will get an IP address from the internal range that we have defined just now. Okay, so I'm going to add it the VPN. So it's going to ask you some of the information that you're supposed to fill up. Let's say this provider, of course I'm going to use this Windows built-in connection name. Let's say my testing VPN, no problem. Okay, so let's correct the spelling. And the IP address, of course this is the IP address which we have used right now while configuring the VPN as a public interface. So this public interface is going to be this one, 192.168.200.200, if you remember. Okay, it's automatic. Username and password, of course for the authentication I'm going to use this for the sign in. So let's say username was VPN1. Okay, that account is created, that what I have shown you last time. Okay, so let's give the password of that user. Save it, then we are going to dial in. See, of course there is no net because I have not dialed up so far. Okay, now let's go to connect. Now it's going to try to get a connection via that 200. See, congratulations, this is done successfully. Now how will you make sure that you are successfully connected to the VPN? If I show you the IP address, now it's going to have two ranges. See, we started sharing IP address from 50, so that's why it's getting the IP 151. That means my actual IP is the 200 range, 200.201. Okay, so that means now you are able to communicate with any of the resources that's been shared in your VPN server's internal network. So let's try to bring it over here, and trust me, it should be able to reply. Otherwise we fail to configure the VPN server. Congratulations, successfully the setting is done. Now there's one more thing. If you would like to make sure that a VPN connection is set successfully, if you go to the domain over here, if I refresh it, you might be wondering, once since the VPN connection is already done but still we are not able to see the remote access. This is just, you need to refresh it. It's gonna show you that one connection is done over here. Okay, and it's gonna give you the further information as well. See, did you notice over here one connection is done? Okay, now let's try to see a bit further information about this. Viatech, it's a domain, and this user has logged in as a remote client. Okay, remote client over here. And then over here, if I notice in my network, okay, sorry, I was using another one. Let's say the Zoom was used over here, so that's why it was giving. Now it's okay. See, the duration is also shown over here. Number of ports, only one. So this proves that the VPN setup was successfully done in your network environment. Queries regarding this, you can simply send a message or just give a comment on this. So if you find it was fruitful to you, easy to understand, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.